Happy St. Patrick's Day to those that celebrate. I'm not one of them, but thank you guys for tuning in to the Incline Dodgers podcast presented by TickPick and Fansided. We are just hours away at this point from the Japanese edition of opening day. The Los Angeles Dodgers take on the Chicago Cubs at the Tokyo Dome with Yoshinobu Yamamoto getting the nod for game one. He'll go against Shota Imanaga of the Chicago Cubs. Can't wait for that, although I'm going to need to get some sleep before we get to that game. But we're live here giving you a full in-depth preview of the 2025 Dodgers season. We're all going to drop some hot and some bold predictions. We're not going to sugarcoat this and play it safe. I'm going to throw it all out there. I will not be predicting Bobby Miller as a Cy Young finalist, though, this season. Just going to disclose that right now. Let me pass it off to Jake Reiner. Baseball season is here. It's 2025. Spring training is a thing of the past. What do you have on your mind, and what are you looking forward to the 2025 edition of the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Well, it's been a few years since we've been defending champions, so this is going to be sweet. And the fact that we won a World Series title in a full season, having that be the what just occurred is just nice to have that with us all season long. We are the defending champs. Everybody is going to be trying to dethrone us all season long, heading into the postseason. The Dodgers, as Stephen A. Smith likes to put it, are box office. Every single night, the Dodgers are going to be driving up ratings. They're going to be driving up crowds. They're going to be driving up ticket prices and all of that because it is the main ticket in town. And any team that plays the Dodgers is going to feel that. And the Dodgers have not necessarily cornered the market, but they've discovered the market in Japan and they have capitalized on it. And so starting the season in Japan against the Cubs, Yamamoto versus Imanaga, a beautiful starting pitching matchup to start the season. Couldn't have scripted it better. You've got Shohei Ohtani, you've got Roki Sasaki going to make an appearance, Seiya Suzuki. I mean, the list goes on. These players are ready for opening day. But one thing I'm not a huge fan of is the start time of 3 a.m. on the West Coast, which I can get into a little bit later about how I feel about that because I don't love it. But throwing that out the window, I'm excited baseball's back, and I'm excited once again that we are the first game of the season.
There's a Mount Rushmore of what's hot in Japan. It's Pokemon, it's Hello Kitty, it's sushi, and it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. Those four things are taking
in that order.
They're not in that order, but I'm saving the best for last. Those are the four things that are just dominating Japan right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. If you got questions for the show, we'll get to those later. Chris Camello is here to join us as well as we preview the 2025 Dodgers. We've got the gold jerseys that we're expecting them to don off when we get back to Los Angeles. It'll be the second time in our lifetimes that we can remember them representing those gold jerseys. So that'll be nice. Chris, what's the first thing on your mind when you think about this Dodgers upcoming season?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know how they used to have those aprons, "Kiss Me, I'm Irish." Because this is like Celtic green, shoot me. I'm not Irish, please. I just thought I'd lead off with that. I think there's a lot to be excited about. This was a team that did not decide to rest on its laurels during the offseason. They were aggressive. They shored up their starting pitching. They shored up their bullpen. They decided to keep a lot of key guys back. I mean, look at football, for example. Look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did to their Super Bowl team, already cutting guys to, get under the salary cap. So the Dodgers said, we're not doing that. We're going to keep Teoscar Hernandez. We're going to keep Blake Trinan. We're going to keep a lot of these key guys, and we're going to add guys on top of that. So it's been a great offseason, very exciting. The spring has gone pretty well so far. It's good to see these guys getting the reps in. And now to start the season in Japan, like you were saying, Jake, it's very exciting, especially when you have three of the biggest names in Japanese baseball donning a Dodger blue uniform. And it's just going to drive up the game, not just, for us Angelinos, but internationally in Japan. So the Dodgers are becoming, I don't want to say like a cult figure, but they are becoming global. And that's not something you could say about a ton of baseball teams over the last 30, 40 years. So it's really exciting to see. I agree. It's 3 a.m. A lot of people are probably going to be watching the game. Not live unless you're a sicko like you two, but they will be watching it on the replays and stuff, and it'll be fun to watch. So the bottom line is, guys, be healthy, be hungry. And I think that is also what their mindset was during the offseason. Let's get guys healthy, but also let's get guys who haven't won or weren't part of this team last year. And that's going to get them hungry to stay motivated. And that's going to keep everyone else motivated. So we'll see how that all works out as the season goes on.
Speaking of healthy, let's start with a department that has a history of not staying healthy. That's the Dodgers starting pitching. So let's start at the top of the top. You've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Roki Sasaki, Dustin May. Those are the 5 to begin the season. At some point, the Dodgers expect Clayton Kershaw, Shohei Ohtani. You can expect as well some innings from Tony Gonsolin, maybe a Justin Robleski, Bobby Miller, Nick Frasso, Emmett Sheehan, Landon Knack. A lot of names, but let's start with the top guys. So kind of at a high level, how you feeling about this Dodgers rotation?
On paper, it's the best in baseball and maybe the best that has ever been assembled. I mean, if you have all of these starting pitchers healthy the entire season, I don't know what starting staff could rival this starting pitching rotation. I don't know. I mean, you definitely could go back and challenge me on that, but just based on, anecdotally, like it is the best. And for me, like, as we all know, and I say this every year now, that the Dodgers are obviously they're not only the favorites to win the NL West, but also to make the playoffs in general, which I believe they will do both of those things quite easily this year. The question is always, will these pitchers be healthy enough for October? Specifically Glasnow, because Glasnow was someone that we could have really used in the playoffs, and it didn't ultimately matter because the Dodgers won the World Series, but the entire playoffs, we were just kind of scraping together these outings where you didn't know what you were going to get from Flaherty. You didn't know what you were going to get from Yamamoto. You didn't know what you were going to get from who else started?
Walker
Buehler, right? Like you didn't know what you were going to get from these guys, and then you had to do a bullpen game and kind of piece it together. So having Glasnow ready for the playoffs is going to be huge. Having Yamamoto ready for the playoffs is going to be huge. Any of these guys that have dealt with injuries last year, it's going to be how can we get these guys healthy and ready for October? And if they have to go on the IL, which we know it's inevitable, it's going to happen. Can they go on the IL soon enough in the season to where by the time we get to September, October, these guys are not only healthy, but they're built out to be starters?
On paper, the Dodgers pitching staff is the department I'm least concerned about because, like Jake said, they have the best rotation in baseball by a mile when you look at them on paper. And even output-wise, I expect them all to produce at a high level. Blake Snell's here to just eat innings, dominate, strike out guys, and he has a track record of dominance in October. Tyler Glasnow, I have a pretty hot take on later on. I'll save that for the back half of the show, but I'm a big Tyler Glasnow fan, so excited to see him healthy. He's had a tremendous spring. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I'm comfortable to say at this point, he's the Dodgers' ace of the staff. He proved it last season. If you need him to go in a game 1 or a game 5 with the season on the line, he can step up at a moment's notice and come through. This is a guy that owns the New York Yankees. Not many starting pitchers in their lifetime can have that claim to fame saying they own the New York Yankees. But that's exactly who Yoshinobu Yamamoto is. He did it at the high level. This is now his second year in Major League Baseball. He's a proven commodity at this point. Roki Sasaki is an interesting one. I think at a stuff talent level, he's got the best stuff on the starting staff. The challenge for the Dodgers is going to be, how do you keep this guy fresh and the longevity going so that he pitches like he can in October or September and be fresh? Or how can he keep him to pitch how can you keep him to pitch at a level that he's pitching right now, stay fresh, and carry that into September through October? I think that's going to be the Dodgers' biggest struggle with Roki Sasaki. And then you've got Shohei Ohtani, who, when he's healthy and on the mound, he's also one of the most dominating starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. And this will be our first look at seeing Shohei Ohtani start games for the Dodgers. And I'm very excited, as I'm sure both of you guys are. But to kind of keep it short and sweet at this point, this staff is loaded, and I'm not worried one bit if healthy.
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much touched on everything. The only thing I would say is, could we see guys going on IL stints, in order to keep them fresh throughout the season? And they showed that they could piece it together last year with calling up guys like Robleski and Landon Knack and, Bobby Miller. And you saw the breakout season that Gavin Stone had. Obviously, it ended with, season-ending shoulder surgery, which he's still recovering from now. The key is to not really get them through April, May, or June. It's going to be the August, September, and, of course, into October. I think that was fresh on Friedman and Brandon Gomes' mind, which is why they went after Sasaki, why they were aggressive after Blake Snell. Because you guys also know as well as I do, you never win a championship the same way twice, right? And just going off grid just a little bit, Lakers won in 2009, right? Due to their great offensive execution. How did they win in 2010? They won it with defense, bringing in a guy like Ron Artest to match up with the Paul Pierces. So, yeah, they won back-to-back titles, but they did it in two different ways. And I think for the Dodgers, they don't want to have to feel like we're leaning on the bullpen like we did all of last year during the regular season and all of the postseason, basically. 4 bullpen games in the playoffs last year, including in the World Series. You cannot continue to lean on that because, as you guys know, relievers are sometimes here today, gone tomorrow. They get injured. They lose their stuff. Teams have better scouting reports on them, and they're just not as effective year in and year out. All of the greats, with the exception of maybe Mariano Rivera. And even he had, lapses, I'm sure, during the regular season. My point being is the starting pitching depth is going to be key, but keeping everyone fresh through those early months is going to be imperative to make sure that they're healthy long-term, specifically in September and October.
Is there one Dodgers starting pitcher in particular that you would circle in as the front runner of this staff's to be the Cy Young?
I'm so nervous and scared to pick someone because usually my pick ends up with a career-ending injury. But I feel like Yamamoto is someone that could be in the running for Cy Young just if he stays healthy. I just think he's just nasty enough to be able to just have an incredible season, and I think he's likely, if he is healthy, I think his ERA is going to be below 3 if that's the case. So I would put Yamamoto in that conversation, and I would put Blake Snell in there. I mean, he's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. To make him a 3rd-time Cy Young Award winner, now we're talking Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I could see that happening, and then obviously based on health, Glasnow could also win it. But right now it's Yamamoto and Snell for me. I
agree. No complaints on that.
I'll save my answer for a little bit since got to keep the people waiting. Up from the lesser tier guys that still will have somewhat of an impact, I'm not going to exclude Tony Gonsolin from this starting staff. I think he's going to have a meaningful role for the Dodgers this season. Yeah. I think this back injury right now is a bunch of BS. I think they're just phantom ILing him. They didn't want him to travel out to Tokyo. They want to continue to build him up as he's recovering from that Tommy John surgery. And they don't need him to pitch in March, let alone probably April. They want Tony Gonsolin for the heat of the summer when they need a guy to eat innings. And I think they want to keep his arm healthy. So I think Tony Gonsolin is going to be an innings eater. I think Justin Robleski is going to have somewhat of a meaningful role for the Dodgers too. He might be more of a swing guy and eat some innings out of the pen and be a long relief guy, but they also might view him as a guy that can spot start. And who knows if Snell, Glasnow, or Yamamoto all need a breather, and 2 or 3 of these guys end up on the aisle at once. I think Robleski, who didn't show a whole lot as a rookie at the big league level, but he did really shine at the minor league level. And I think he's going to be that one Dodgers starter, kind of like what Gavin Stone did, where he made the adjustments and takes the big step forward. The one guy I have no clue about, because I was really hoping we'd see a lot of him this spring, is Bobby Miller. Yeah. Like if Bobby Miller doesn't have a role for the Dodgers this season, he could be someone we're talking about getting shipped off at the trade deadline. But again,
he had a rude awakening. His first spring start, he took a batted ball off the head. So I kind of want to wait and see if that's all good there and if he's able to come back from that. But just to your point about Robleski, I could see him having kind of like a Ryan Yarbrough type of role, where it's like you said, spot start, but also like piggyback situation. To really, shorten these games, especially if they don't envision these starters going more than 4 or 5 innings a night. And if they end up going to some type of 6-man rotation, we also don't know, they say mid-year or so for Shohei Ohtani in terms of pitching, but like that's a believe it when I see it kind of thing. I'll take it with a grain of salt. Like you never know. I mean, they've been slow playing him for a long time. So we'll see about that. But I definitely am excited about this pitching staff because that, Landon Knack is going to get some run. Tony Gonsolin's going to get some run. Dustin May, what does he have? Can he stay healthy? All of these guys are going to get opportunities because there are going to be injuries. That's just inevitable. So it's like Chris was talking about, the depth is huge here.
For sure. Yeah. And I think you guys touched on it. And I think Gonsolin, I mean, first of all, here's the thing with Gonsolin. Yes, he was coming off Tommy John. His stuff is not predicated on velo. Yes, I mean, 94 is a lot better than 92. It's about placing, just like with Sasaki, it's about placing that splitter and getting the swings and misses. As long as he's got some bite on that, everything else will follow. I think the guy to watch, I agree, is Dustin May. Dustin May has not pitched since May of 2023 against the Minnesota Twins. Don't ask me how I remembered that, but I remembered that with no notes in front of me, by the way.
Hold on. I think it was that. Sorry, I don't mean to correct you, Chris, but I believe it was the Brewers.
I could have sworn he went out in that Twins game, but no, you might be right. Yeah. But anyway,
I remember because it was around my birthday. My birthday is the beginning of May.
Didn't he get the first elbow blowout against the Brewers in Milwaukee?
I know. I remember him like just being walking off the mound in Milwaukee.
I think injury 1 was Milwaukee,
and I think injury 2 was a matinee against the Twins,
where
Outman helped lead a comeback. I remember I was sick as a dog. And I was watching that game, and they were like, oh, my God, Dustin May's down again. The point is, it's been 2 calendar years since he pitched. Who else did we say that about last year? Walker Buehler. So the thing is, yes, May, everyone's like, yeah, May looks great during the spring. Take spring for what it is. You could put a lot of stock into it or a little. The fact of the matter is, Dustin May will struggle at times. And that's fine. You just have to be patient with him. The question is he healthy enough to give you 5 to 6 quality innings every start where he's given up 4 runs or less? That you could live with. All you want to know is playing the long game. Are you durable? Can you throw 130 innings or 120 innings or whatever it is coming into the season? That's going to be the key. Not to mention, you're going to have Clayton Kershaw come back at some point. You guys mentioned Shohei Ohtani pitching at some point. Gonsolin, Bobby Miller, everyone is going to get a bite of the apple. It's just about staying healthy, and the back end of the rotation is going to be imperative this year. And you want to see those guys be competitive. And here's the other thing too. A lot of these guys are going to get rings. And if you're a guy like Tyler Glasnow and you're a guy like Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May looking at those rings on the ceremony, there's going to be an empty feeling there because it's like, yeah, I won a ring, but this one isn't mine. I didn't pitch for the team in October. So with that comes motivation and a hold my beer while I go out and remind you who I am. And that's what we need to see from those guys I just mentioned.
Good point. Good point. And just a quick shout out to Emmett Sheehan, who should be back in the second half. And we'll see him probably, I don't think he'll start for the Dodgers unless it's a necessity, but he'll probably come out of the pen. And speaking of bullpen, let's take a pause on starting pitching and talk about the Dodgers bullpen. So last season, they had one of the best bullpens in all of Major League Baseball. They were a collective unit. They were a brotherhood. We lost some guys like Daniel Hudson and Joe Kelly, but they massively upgraded. Tanner Scott came in. Kirby Yates is brought in. Blake Trinan is re-signed. And it goes with a great collection of Alex Vesey, Anthony Bonda, Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, Gratterall should be back at some point. Ben Kasparius has really blossomed over this spring training as well. And Jack Dreyer was added to the 40-man, and he's been really good for the Dodgers. And there's a lot of hype with him. So general consensus here, I have to imagine we all are pretty high on the Dodgers bullpen. It's a collected, loaded talent. Quick thoughts on this Dodgers bullpen before we maybe dive into an individual player or two.
You know what's fascinating is not only to look at who is healthy and starting this season, but also look at who is not healthy and not starting this season. And both bullpens are great. Like the fact that we have Evan Phillips and Brusdar Graterol coming back from injuries, Michael Kopech, those guys. I mean, imagine adding those guys into this bullpen with Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, Blake Trinan. I mean, that is an unbelievable bullpen, and it gets me excited just thinking about the possibilities of, like I was saying earlier, shortening these games. So to me, this bullpen is very I don't know what the word is, but they're flexible, I think is the word I'm looking for. Very flexible in the sense that they can wait for these guys to get fully healthy to come rejoin the team and still hold down the fort. How many other franchises can you say that about in Major League Baseball where they're missing their, if you're missing your key closer or your key setup man or your key, high leverage guy, you may be done for a couple months. Like you may be losing games and blowing games left and right. Now, I'm not saying that every lead the Dodgers have late in a ball game, they're going to be able to complete that and they're not going to have blown saves and all that. But I'm just saying the depth of this team is so vast that you can hold down the fort while these guys get healthy. It's amazing.
Adding Tanner Scott to this bullpen is just unfair for the rest of the league. Tanner Scott has some of the filthiest stuff, just statistically from a grade metric standpoint. Tanner Scott has nasty swing and miss stuff, and he's got the mental attitude to be this Dodgers closer. Kirby Yates, I'm a little skeptical about. Not that I think he's going to be bad by any means, but last season he had just video game numbers. I think his ERA was barely above 1. I'm not expecting that repeat from Kirby Yates. Right. So at his age, there probably will be some regression. But as long as Kirby Yates can handle high leverage situations, he's going to be a phenomenal setup man. Same for Blake Trinan. I think Blake Trinan is going to be that guy that you can pitch him whenever, whether it's the 4th inning or the 9th inning. Blake Trinan has just proven he can handle any moment. And now that he's a 2-time World Series champion, you know that Dave Roberts can trust him and lean heavily on him in any given moment. And then the other two lefties, Vesia, Bonda, love to have them both in that Dodgers rotation. So there's a lot of different arm angles, a lot of different pitch types. This bullpen's going to slice and dice them any different angle, and it's just a loaded, strong class. And we'll see how it pans out. But right now on paper, they have the making to be the greatest Dodgers bullpen of all time. And the last shout out, I think Ben Kasparius is going to have a massive season for the Dodgers. He was graded as the best pure stuff in all of Major League Baseball this spring training from TJ Stats. Everything he throws an insanely wicked slider, a nasty cutter and fastball. I think Ben Kasparius, the fact that he can throw multiple innings as well, I expect the Dodgers to lean pretty heavily on him, and he's going to be kind of an X factor out of the pen.
Yeah, no, it's a good take. And I agree on Yates. That's definitely somebody to watch. And, he did not have a great spring. Once again, you could put a lot of stock in spring or none, but just looking at it, he did not have a very good spring. So, but also too, Jake, you mentioned something interesting earlier, 4 to 5 innings for the starter and then turn it over to the pen. While the pen has depth, I also think you have to be careful managing those innings, especially on the incumbent relievers who did a lot of the heavy lifting last year in the regular season and the postseason. So, yeah, you got some new blood in there with Yates and Scott, along with, a guy like Kasparius who can give you multiple innings. I just think you also want to lean a little bit more on the starters, going 6-7 innings, especially early on in the year. So that way you're not leaning so much on the relievers late. That being said, you could turn it over to any of those guys. You have about 4 or 5 who you could be a Dodger fan and confidently say they could pitch the 8th or 9th inning without any problems. And that's a great luxury to have.
I just want to address that a little bit because you're either trying to preserve the bullpen or you're trying to preserve the starting rotation, and kind of where do you fall on that? Personally, I think the Dodgers should be prioritizing the starting rotation because that is huge. As you know, in a playoff game, you could have scoring that happens in the first 3 innings and then none for the rest of the game. So it is imperative that they have good starting pitching and they're able to basically get their defense off the field so that they could have their offense go to the bat rack and start scoring runs. So I agree with you. You don't want to burn the bullpen so much at any point during the season, but I feel like the Dodgers are trying to correct their mistakes because clearly what they've been doing with the starting rotation hasn't worked. These guys are getting injured way too often and they're out for way too long, and they're having to string together these games with starting pitchers that they don't necessarily trust as much. So I have a feeling that they're going to slow play the hell out of this starting rotation from the beginning so that the guys that are injury prone are ready in October.
I think the question is who's going to be the Phil Bickford of 2025 for the Dodgers. They always lean on some rubber arm guy. I don't think it'll be him. I think he might be a multi-inning guy, but maybe the answer could be Jack Dreyer, who's another lefty. He actually really showed out this spring, had 10 strikeouts over 6 innings, pitched 6 games. If he's a guy that kind of has that rubber arm ability and he can pitch 4 days over 5, pitching 4 games over 5 days or 3 and 5 or whatever that stretch is where it's like you're pitching 3 days in a row. I think Dave Roberts is going to do that because that's one way that the Dodgers historically have been able to keep their top guys fresh. More recently too, where you just hear it every day. Guys like when they had like a Daniel Hudson or an Alex Vesia, they'd ask them how they're feeling. And if they were feeling a little tired, they were down for that day. And I know fans get very frustrated, us included, when we're like, why didn't they go to so-and-so to relieve this game? And then you find out post-game, well, that guy was unavailable, and you don't learn that until after the fact. So the Dodgers need guys that they can just burn their arm out and save the Tanner Scotts and the Kirby Yates of the world to keep them fresh.
I mean, yeah, that's why we're going to see Robleski. We're going to see Knack. We're going to see, hopefully Bobby Miller at some point, because they're going to need all the arms they can get.
Sure.
Cool. Yep. Well, we've covered the pitching. Is there any other pitching takes you want to throw out there, or any general Dodgers MLB takes out there before we shift gears to the hitters?
Do you think that we're going to see Dave Roberts name a closer, or is it just going to be kind of?
He already did. I think he said it was Tanner Scott.
Oh, he did. I must have missed that. So it is Tanner Scott.
You spent 4 years and $72 million on a reliever not named Kenley Jansen, which I think is the biggest contract given to a reliever since Friedman gave it to Jansen in 2016. Then yeah, it's got to be Tanner Scott, at least to start the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I figured as much. I just didn't know if they had officially announced it. But okay, then we can move on from that.
Anything else? Do you want to rant real quick, or should we go to hitters?
We can go to hitters.
Okay. It's a lot of good hitters in this Dodgers lineup. Just to name a few, you've got this guy Shohei Ohtani. You've got Will Smith, who can catch. You've got Mookie Betts, who's not going to play in this Tokyo series. They either sent him home or they thought about sending him home. He's got an illness, so that's keeping him out of action. He'll be the Dodgers shortstop. You got Freddie Freeman, the World Series MVP. He's rolling back. He's looked really good this spring. He looks healthy despite all the surgeries he had to undergo. Oh, we got breaking news here. The Dodgers just dropped their opening day lineup.
Whoa.
So let's pivot to that real quick. Since we are talking about hitters, we might as well see who's starting for the Dodgers. Oh, wait, I think I screwed us over. Sorry, I got excited. It just says opening day Japan edition.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's just a stupid graphic. I thought it included the lineup. I got played.
You
never gonna give you up.
All right, anyways, you got Kike, you got Muncy, you got Miguel Rojas, Conforto, the new addition in the outfield, Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernandez, James Outman, Andy Pages, and that guy Chris Taylor. Any hitter you want to talk about or focus on real quick?
Camello was trying to rickroll you, Kevin. But you steamrolled
Rickrolled
right over
himself.
it.
I was just providing the music.
No, but who do you want to talk about first, Chris?
Yeah, I guess we got to talk about the big guns. What to expect from Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman, the World Series hero and the regular season hero. And that's not a diss to Shohei Ohtani. Dodgers wouldn't have been in the position that they were in October had it not been for Shohei Ohtani, Mr. 50-50. So let's start off with the MVP.
Okay. This is not really a hot take, although some people did ridicule me last season when I said this. Shohei Ohtani is going to be the National League MVP once again. So jumping the gun a little early when we talk about our MVP predictions, but I'm going with Shohei Ohtani. I'm running it back. He's the best player in Major League Baseball. I'm expecting probably close to 40, if not surpassing 40 home runs. He'll take a step back with the stolen bases, but he's still going to hit probably around 300. He's going to have an on base of probably 370. He's going to have an OPS of near 1,000. And then he'll probably drive in 110 plus Dodgers, score 100 plus runs. And one thing that he really did improve on in the second half was that clutch hitting. He really started to shine with runners in scoring position. And that's one of the reasons his RBI numbers just started to just explode. I mean, he did have like 10 RBIs in one game against the Marlins. So this guy is, as you guys called it earlier, he is box office. That is what Shohei Ohtani is. He's the biggest star in Los Angeles. I'm ready to go out on a limb, and I think the next challenge or milestone that Ohtani needs to accomplish is either win an NLCS MVP or a World Series MVP. I think that's the one big thing he's missing right now on his amazing resume.
Yeah, it's going to be another amazing year for Shohei Ohtani. He cemented his legacy this past October, basically pulling the Dodgers back from the dead, it seemed, in that San Diego series. I mean, that home run that he hit in game one was, I think, monumental in propelling the Dodgers forward in the playoffs. I mean, he was just an absolute difference maker. And even when he wasn't, hitting the ball as amazing as he did the entire season in the playoffs, he's still such a feared hitter that they played him so carefully and they pitched around him a lot. And luckily we have a guy named Mookie Betts who's right behind him who was able to answer the call more times than not. I mean, how many times did we see Shohei Ohtani get walked and Mookie Betts stepped up to the plate and delivered? So to me, it's not just about how he's playing at the current moment. It's his aura, as the kids say. I mean, it is everything that surrounds him and just how fearful opposing managers are of him. It just speaks for itself. And the fact that we have him now for the rest of eternity, we've already got that World Series title under our belt. We don't have to sit here and have this conversation about, was he worth it? Are they not winning any titles? What's the point? He can't perform in October. We're having none of those conversations because when you're that good, when you are arguably, you could make an argument, obviously, that he's the greatest player of all time. That's what the greats do. They just show up. And the guys that don't show up are not the greatest of all time. That's the difference, is they show up when it matters. So to have him again on this team, I agree with Kevin. If he doesn't win MVP, he's going to be the tops again, top 2, top 3 in voting. And you look around the National League, I mean, who else really could it be, right? I mean, you got Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back from injury. It could be him, but you never know. It could be a couple of other guys on the Braves, but I don't see any of them surpassing Ohtani. You could look to like Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, maybe he has some sort of monster season where it can't be denied that he's the unanimous MVP. But there isn't really a lot of competition I see right now.
One though.
What?
Juan Soto.
I was going to say Soto. I was also going to say
Ellie De La Cruz.
Ellie's the other one too.
Ellie De La Cruz, and also too, don't sleep on him. It's a little bit of a sleeper pick. and he'll probably end up getting 4th or 5th place votes if he has a good season. Kyle Tucker with the Chicago Cubs. I'm interested to see what he does this year to uplift that team. And if they win a division and he's a big reason for that, hitting anywhere from 36 to 42 home runs, that may be a lot, but just hear me out. Don't be surprised if he's at least in the conversation, similar to what how Francisco Lindor was in the conversation last year. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen. So just another name to throw out there. Kyle Tucker.
No, I agree with that. I'm a big Tucker fan. We talked about him with Ari a couple weeks ago, who covers the Astros in Houston. Yeah, I mean, that's Shohei Ohtani for you folks. Everyone knows how elite of a hitter he is. But let's not sleep on Freddie Freeman. Let's not sleep on Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Both of them are going to continue to add to their Hall of Fame resumes as well. Mookie Betts is probably going to hit close to 30 home runs, probably anywhere from 24 to 30 home runs is my guess. Freddie Freeman, more on the lower 20 side, 20 to 25 home runs is probably what you're expecting from Freddie Freeman in terms of home runs. But both these guys have a tremendous ability to get on base. They both are good defenders when they're on, and they both hit a lot of extra base hits, a lot of doubles, especially from Freddie Freeman, who gets a lot of RBIs as well when he's getting those doubles, and he's sneaky fast. But those are the big three. They've all won MVPs. They've all won World Series at this point in their career. It's the best 1, 2, 3 in Major League Baseball. And I would argue with anyone that no team has a trio like that that's even close.
No, it's not particularly close. I mean, when you look at the resumes, I mean, and you couple that with the fact that the Dodgers have the best player in baseball, and then the next two guys are also former MVPs and World Series champions. Honestly, I can't even think of a better three right now, maybe ever. I don't know. I mean, it's, you got the 27 Yankees murderers row. I mean, there's so many different teams that
Big
have
Red
like
Machine,
juggernaut offenses, or any of like the steroid teams in the 90s, early 2000s. You could look, but like this is as good as it gets. And don't forget, like when Mookie Betts broke his hand or got hit on the hand during the middle of the season, like he was on track to rival Shohei Ohtani as an MVP candidate. I mean, I'm almost like bummed that we didn't get to see what that season would have been like, because when he came back, it was like he had missed no time. He just jumped right back in, and he was the Mookie Betts that we know and love. It's just unfortunate that he had to have that injury, because I think if it's not Juan Soto, if it's not Fernando Tatis Jr. or any of these other guys that could rival Shohei Ohtani for that MVP, I'd say Mookie Betts is right up there too.
Yeah.
So
for us, all three of us, we're winners because we're all loyalists to Teoscar Hernandez. We said the Dodgers need to bring him back. We were Team Teo. We didn't even flirt with the idea of going with Juan Soto because we liked what we had with Teoscar, and the Dodgers re-signed him. And I think it's safe to say you can expect another productive season from Teoscar Hernandez, who I think at this point has established himself as the Dodgers' true cleanup hitter, because he really thrived in that role last season. Probably going to hit close to 30 home runs, driving close to 100 Dodgers, strike out a lot because that's the one hole in his game. But you'll take that as long as he continues to deliver the big hits, the big home runs, and bring the sunflower seeds. So I'm excited for year 2 of Teoscar.
I'm one of Teoscar Hernandez's biggest fan. I think even a bigger fan than me would be my girlfriend. I don't know why she loves him, but we went specifically to the Teoscar Hernandez bobblehead night to get a bobblehead. So I love Teoscar Hernandez. The one thing I think about, though, if I'm playing as devil's advocate about him specifically, is he's already won the World Series. He's already got the contract. So what does that mean for him moving forward? I worry that maybe there might be a little bit of regression as opposed to what happened last year, because it was a contract year. But I think with the collective goal of going back to back and not having that since the Yankees in the early 2000s, like, I think the mindset collectively is going to keep all these guys in check and on their toes. And I hope that there isn't a regression for any of them. But I think if there is one guy that you could see that from, we might see some stretches where Teoscar is just striking out left and right. I mean, he is prone to that. So I would caution fans about that. That could happen. But I think that the goals are so laser focused on this squad and this franchise that I don't think anybody's going to be lacking in anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, I pushed hard for the Dodgers to get Teoscar Hernandez last season, and I was not. I mean, even though I was proven right with the impact that he had on this team, not even I really thought he was going to have the transcendent impact he had, not just on this team, not just in this clubhouse, but in the city of LA. I mean, when you have fans at the championship rally chanting your name and you see tears coming to the eyes of Teoscar Hernandez, there's something you can't put a price on that. You know what I mean? I don't even think Teoscar could have predicted the kind of impact or the love he's got for the city of Los Angeles, the fans, and the Dodger organization. So, yeah, there could be some regression. But you know what, though, Jake? I could make that argument with a lot of the guys with the Dodger, wearing a Dodger uniform this year that were on the team last year, because that's just how it goes. We have not seen a repeat champion in 25 years. Last time we saw it was the Yankees three-peat era of 98 to 2000. And even that, go back and watch The Captain, the Derek Jeter doc on ESPN. They barely got into the playoffs that year in 2000. Barely. It took, they got smoked the last day of the regular season, yet they still clinched. So, I mean, that's just how it is. When you have full stomachs and you're at the top, there's only one place to go. It's down. However, that being said, 25 home runs, 80 to 90 RBIs, like Kev was kind of alluding to, and a 265, 275 average, you'll live with that, and plays, and it's not a horrible glove in either left or right field. I think he's going to play right with Conforto going in left. So I don't think that's going to be an awful production in the 4 or 5 spot, wherever Dave is going to put him. But, the impact is going to be in October and just being a constant positive presence in that clubhouse during the dark days.
Yeah, the one area of weakness that I do feel like could be an ongoing storyline for the Dodgers is the outfield defense. The outfield offensively is going to have a lot of pop, but defensively, I'm not loving this alignment.
No.
And it wouldn't surprise me if they have their days where it's just complete dog shit, and that leads to extra runs being scored, runners advancing in extra base. Because the outfield right now, it looks like it's Teoscar in right field, who's historically never been a good defender in right field. It looks like they're going to go with Andy Pages primarily in center field, who is really hit or miss in that position. And then in left field, you mentioned it, Chris, Michael Conforto, another guy who's going to probably hit 20 to 25 home runs. But defensively, I'm not too excited about him either. But because it's left field, it won't matter as much. But it's those other two spots in particular I'm a little nervous about.
Is Edman going to sorry to interrupt? Is Edman going to second base then because of Kim being sent down? Is that for sure?
Yeah, I think that was announced even before they sent Kim down. Was that Edman was going to be the primary second baseman? But
former Gold Glover there, so okay, that was a legit question. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, and as Kevin mentioned, I think in our last episode, he grades out pretty damn well at second base. But my thing with Pages is obviously you sacrifice the defense for the bat, and I don't know if they're going to carry both him and James Outman, but I think with Outman, obviously the defense is better than Pages, but the bat is a little suspect. So I'm with Kevin. The defensive alignment is going. We're going to have some moments out there where you're going to be tearing your hair out, and I think that this offense is so vaunted that you can kind of overcome some of those mistakes. I mean, it's not always going to be the case because it's baseball and you never know. And you're going to, you're going to be in a game, a dogfight with the Rockies in Colorado. That's going to happen. But I think generally speaking, they're going to be able to weather the storm overall with the suspect defense in the outfield. It's not the worst outfield ever, but it's also not the best. And I think that we're going to have to live with that happy medium.
Just going to quickly mention Will Smith, because the one thing that I think the Dodgers have to figure out with Will Smith in the year 2025, long-term season outlook, how do you keep this guy healthy? How do you keep this guy fresh so that he continues, so that for once he can avoid the strenuous, bad second halves that tend to kind of plague Will Smith? in a full 162 game season. For example, last season, he had a 78 WRC plus in the second half, hit 206, almost no power, versus in the first half had a 130 WRC plus, was an all-star, and he was one of their best hitters with runners in scoring position, and hit a respectable 272 with 15 home runs versus 5 home runs in the second half. So do the Dodgers play Austin Barnes a little bit more, who can't throw any runners out? I don't know if that's optimal, but that seems to be their guy that's the backup catcher. Dalton Rushing, we'll see if the Dodgers call him up at some point, and maybe they decide to roster 3 catchers. I don't know if they would do that either, but at some point I do feel like they're going to want to get Rushing's bat in this lineup so that they can add that pedigree, because he is their best hitting prospect. But with Ohtani being the DH, and I don't know how many days off Ohtani will get, one of the things that I haven't really looked into yet is if Ohtani starts the game, do they just give him the next day off altogether? If that's a yes, then I guess that's a great opportunity.
You're saying start a game as in like on the mound?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's I'll be interested to see how they play that. But I think when you look at Will Smith, it's interesting because last year he fell off in the second half, and we just thought that it was kind of run-of-the-mill Will Smith because he tends to do that a lot. But then it comes to light that he had this ankle issue that wasn't really talked about, and that he suffered it. He suffered it in June in the Yankees series, which is kind of crazy that he was able to play the rest of the season the way he was in the playoffs. I think it's more than just the injury, though. They got to figure out a way and to keep him fresher, because I think that's the issue, the fatigue issue in the second half. It's why I see the numbers dip as much as they do. But I think with the way the Dodgers have constructed this lineup, they're not going to bat Will Smith in the middle of it anymore. He's not going to be batting 4th or 5th. He's going to be batting either 6th, maybe even 7th at this point. And I think that is going to be a lot better for him because the pressure is going to be off him as well. Putting him, batting 3rd or 4th or 5th in the lineup, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. And especially in this lineup with all the eyes and the eyeballs on this franchise, it can be tough to carry that load, especially being the catcher as well. So now that the Dodgers have added guys like Conforto and they've added Teoscar back and Edman and all these guys, the relying on Will Smith to provide offensive thump isn't going to be as glaring as it once was. That might help him too. But I think Kevin's right. They got to figure out a way to keep him, just like we talked about with the starting pitching, keep him fresh. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe they could start Austin Barnes a little bit more. He did hit pretty well. He has hit pretty well in spring training. But like you said, that he can't throw anybody out. I mean, he's got one of the worst arms I've ever seen. And what is even the mechanics that he uses? I don't know. I don't know where they taught him that or why he hasn't changed that, but it looks terrible. I don't know what the solution is. But again, I mean, you got a stacked lineup. So maybe you could afford to give Will Smith a couple more days off and have Austin Barnes catch. I mean, are you really losing that much? You know what I'm saying? Is it that glaring when you have all the rest of these guys in the lineup every day?
I think also too, this is sometimes a problem when you have 2-star players sucking up an everyday position. Ohtani with the DH and Freddie Freeman at first. When you look at a lot of the catchers through the years, whether it be Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, even go back to Mike Napoli, JT Realmuto, a lot of times when these guys were not catching, where were they playing? First base and or DHing, depending on I'm talking now before the universal DH. Dodgers don't have that luxury. So, yeah, I think either more days off or more times at DH. And I think you're going to see both with Will Smith, especially in that second half of the season. I think they're going to implore him, especially since he'll be in the first. I don't know if his extension kicks in this season, but in either case, he's going to be a Dodger for quite some time. And so one of the things you want to do, if you want him to stay behind the plate for at least 5 of those next 10 years, you need to be able to protect him. So finding ways for him to get outs, finding off days, but still get the at-bats, I think is going to be very important. And that's going to be a test for Dave and that coaching staff to be able to navigate that. I think another place, and I think, Kev, you pointed this out at times, I think you have, should they start flirting a little bit with having him over at third base?
I think Will Smith is going to be the Dodgers' third baseman potentially as soon as 2026.
If you can't put him at first, put him somewhere, right? Third or left. It's got to be one of those two. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's all I want to talk about in terms of hitters on my list right now. But I do want to pass the torch off to my segment in a second, where I've got 7 hot and bold predictions, and they're kind of like a hot one style. With each take, they get a little spicier and hotter. And I'll go through some of them pretty quick. But before I do that, I want to make sure if you guys want to cover anything else, specific Dodgers hitter, manager, take in general, before we get to my list.
All I'll say is that I can't believe I'm saying this after years of trashing him, but I'm very excited that Dave Roberts is going to be around for a while. I love that they were able to get that done before the season so that we don't have to have this lingering storyline throughout the whole thing. And they keep asking and asking and asking. That just kind of puts it to bed, gives Dave some job security. I mean, he really earned it this past year. He, in my mind, was the manager of the year, not only in the regular season, but he owned everyone in the postseason, literally outmanaged every single guy he went up against. And I just love that they locked him up. Made him the highest paid manager in baseball because, of course, he has to be. He plays for the Dodgers. So I just love that. And I'm excited for what's to come with Dave.
Cool.
Yeah, and last thing, I'm just hoping that your 2 super utility vets, Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez, can continue to be somewhat productive when they're out there. You know, those 2 guys, especially Taylor, can go through lulls offensively. A lot of them, they seem to be coming around a lot more than they used to. But you're just hoping that if they're out there, they can be somewhat productive. If Taylor could give us something what he did in 2023, I think we could all kind of live with that, and especially in a part-time role. And Kike, well, what he does in October outweighs any sort of struggles he may have during the regular season. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like those 2 players, like I look at completely differently. Like Chris Taylor, I'm looking at you, buddy, and you better do something. Where you're on the books for what, $16-17 million this year. You better do something in the regular season, bud, because this is that my patience is wearing thin. With Kike, I'm like, dude, you could hit $150 the whole year. I don't care. Like as much October comes around, that's when you shine, and that's all I care about. And you can play every position.
Chris Taylor doesn't finish the year on the Dodgers, and that's not even one of my 7 hot takes. But I'm down on Chris Taylor. I think the
magic is kind of worn off. I think with him.
Yeah, it's over. He's dead out there, unfortunately, and I don't think there's any resurgence coming. He just strikes out too much. He doesn't hit for batting average. He's not even a good defender at this point. He's just kind of there because they have to have him there due to the contract. So let's do this. I'm going to do some of these quick. Feel free to chime in or comment on any of these takes. Like I said a second ago, hot one style with each one. They get a little hotter and spicier like in hot ones. Nice. Although we don't have any wings, I should have sent you guys those in advance. But yeah, hit that like button. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, let's do this. In the comments, in the chat, you can agree, disagree, whatever you want to say. So take number 1. Tommy Edman plays an all-star second base level approach, masterclass, delivers for the Dodgers, has one of his best seasons ever in his career. High on Tommy Edman going into 2025.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's amazing. I mean, obviously he's a better right-handed hitter than he is left-handed. I mean, the numbers show that. But I'll be interested to see if, his, average versus right-handed pitching goes up. But I'm with you on that. I love Tommy Edman. The Dodgers have been high on him for years, and I'm glad that they brought him back.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if he'll be an all-star, but he'll be very good, and he's going to be imperative to the team's success. Don't forget, NLCS MVP. The guy was awesome. He proved to also be clutch, and he just has that grit factor and that spark. And we saw that once he was healthy enough. That series in Arizona late in the year, when the division was still outstanding, he delivered in some big moments. So it's not even about Tommy Tanks hitting home runs. It's just about the good situational hitting and the ability to play different positions. I think that's going to both of those things are going to be crucial to the Dodgers' success, especially in that bottom part of the order.
I also think, though, that he's probably going to hit second in both of these games without Mookie Betts there.
Especially for the – I'm talking season. But yeah.
No, yeah. I know. I'm just adding on. It'll be interesting to see how he handles Imanaga in game 1.
That'll be interesting.
I'm right there with Chris. Tommy Edman is a clutch bat. He always has that tendency, like Kike, except in the regular season, Tommy Edman can deliver in big spots too. So high on Tommy Edman, all-star worthy second baseman. Maybe not a starter, but a reserve. It's coming. Hopefully I don't go 0 for 7 on these. Number 2, Roki. So we talk about Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is kind of now the face of that young class of major league pitchers. By the end of 2025, it's going to be a new rivalry that's set in stone. Roki Sasaki versus Paul Skeens. They're going to battle one another. I think they're around the same age as well. They're going to battle one another for that crown of being the top pitcher in the National League. In year 1, I think Roki Sasaki adapts right away, finishes with an ERA under 3. The one thing that will probably be against him is the innings and workload, so he won't be a Cy Young perennial contender. But when Roki Sasaki is on the mound, we are going to view him as a top 10 pitcher in Major League Baseball and compare him to the likes of Paul Skeens. Number 3, Dustin May won't end the season in the Dodgers rotation. I don't know if that means the Dodgers trade Dustin May by the deadline, or they move him to the bullpen, or he ends up on the IL with a season-long injury that could knock him out a few months. But where I'm kind of going here is I'm down on Dustin May. He hasn't pitched in 2 years. I know Chris talked about it earlier. To me, I view that as a negative, kind of like when you mentioned Walker Buehler. When Walker Buehler came back after missing nearly 2 years, he was bad in the regular season. The difference, though, between Walker Buehler and Dustin May is that Dustin May hasn't really proven it at all in the big leagues, while Walker Buehler has, and has had that ability to grab you by the balls and step up in October. We haven't seen that by Dustin May. So I'm low on him. I think he's going to be wild all over the place, and I'm concerned about the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hotter take would be to say that Dustin May will start a playoff game. I think that'd be the hottest take. I mean, but saying he won't end up on the roster, I mean, I definitely could see that. I mean, I think for me, it won't be performance; it'll be injured list.
This is a put up or shut up year for Dustin May. I think this is going to be his last year to prove himself as a starter. And if that doesn't work, then I think they're going to consider maybe transitioning him to a bullpen role. You know, don't forget, Daniel Hudson had 2 years of Tommy John. He didn't pitch for 3 years, came back, actually started his reestablishment or his reinvention as a reliever with the Dodgers in 2018 and started carrying it over with the Pirates and then won a World Series with the Nationals. I wonder if that will be his career trajectory if it doesn't work as a starter this year. So
to me, that would be amazing for him. I'd love that for Dustin May.
Yeah, just something to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because he's in a contract year, and I don't know what's in Dustin May's head, whether he wants to go into the contract year as a reliever or get traded somewhere else, like a Cardinals or a White Sox that's going nowhere, and eat some innings if he's healthy. So we'll see. But I am low on May. A pitcher that I'm high on, though, in 2025, I think Tyler Glasnow is going to finish as the Dodgers' Cy Young pitcher. I don't know if he's not going to win the National League Cy Young, but when we talk about the Dodgers Cy Young, I think in 2025, it's going to be Tyler Glasnow. I'm betting on the stuff, and I feel like we'd be kind of robbed and kind of underwhelmed if Tyler Glasnow doesn't finish at least one time in his Dodgers career under this contract as a Cy Young Award finalist. And I feel like 2025, he has a legitimate shot of finishing in the top 3. So I think Tyler Glasnow, he's made the mechanical adjustments, and they claim that he's got a plan to keep himself healthy in 2025. He's been really nasty this spring, and all his pitches have graded out as just disgusting. Probably has the best pure stuff right now in the staff with that fastball and curveball. So I'm high on Glasnow, and I drafted him in fantasy baseball, so he better not do me dirty.
You know, whatever my predictions are at the outside, I've been doing this a few years now with you, Kevin. I think since 2020. Typically, what happens is I make these predictions, and then the exact opposite thing happens. So what I'm going to say is that I disagree with you, and that he won't finish in the tops in Cy Young voting, and will get hurt again, so that maybe he has a shot at doing that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to go that same juju route as Jake. Yeah, Glass is not going to be the Dodgers' best starter, and he's going to struggle.
Yeah. This one is going to upset a lot of people, especially
Good.
the diehards. Clayton Kershaw in the year 2025, he's going to be bad and borderline unplayable. I just don't think Kershaw is going to go out on a high note. I don't think he's going to sniff the postseason roster. I think he'll struggle to keep an ERA below 4.5. I think if Kershaw finishes the season with an ERA below 4.5, I'll take that as a win. He's going to chase the milestone, get the 3,000 career strikeouts, but we probably won't see a lot of starts out of him. I would be shocked if his fastball is above 90 miles per hour at this point. And he's kind of a two-pitch pitcher. He barely throws the curveball these days. And if the slider is at the same velocity as his fastball, we've seen it. The opposition sits on one of those pitches and they hit him hard. So I'm out on Kershaw in 2025. Doesn't take away from all the great accomplishments and the all-time great, but at the age of 37 and all the recent surgeries, it's hard for me to buy into him.
How dare you, Kevin? How dare you go against King Kershaw like that? That is disrespectful. I understand where you're coming from, though. Obviously, he's very injury prone and he is older, but I think that if he is healthy and is pitching, he will have an ERA under 4. I guarantee you that, because I think what Kershaw has done is that he's reinvented himself. He no longer has the velocity on his fastball, but his slider is still so nasty, and his curveball's always been great. I think what he's been able to do is he's gone the way of like a Tom Glavine or Greg Maddux. When they don't have the power, they have the pinpoint accuracy, and Kershaw is so cerebral that he's able to outsmart hitters. So if he is healthy, I expect him to pitch well. He would, and I believe in Kershaw. If he feels like he is not able to get hitters out, he's going to hang it up. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
If he feels like he can't do it anymore, he's going to hang it up. And the fact that he's back for another year tells me that he still thinks he can get hitters out. And like to Chris's point earlier about those guys watching the ring ceremony, thinking about, damn, I love this ring. I'm part of this organization, but I didn't really do much to do anything about that. I think Kershaw has a chip on his shoulder now, and he's going to want to be a contributing factor to this repeat championship.
Yeah. I wasn't necessarily talking about him, but that's a great point, Jake, because of all the things he did for the team in that during the beginning of this playoff run from 2013 to like 2017. He was Santa Claus, man. He did a lot of heavy lifting, for this Dodger team for a long time. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. What were his injuries this past year? They were lower body. They were ankle. They were knee. They weren't shoulder. They weren't elbow. So the way I see it, those two areas have been able to rest. They've been able to heal. They've been able to stay, somewhat healthy. As long as the lower body is working, I don't see why he can't give you competitive starts. They may not be great starts, but if he can give you in the line of, let's say, this is a bad comp, but just hear me out, of what Jose Quintana did for the Mets last year, that's not horrible through the dog days of the summer. And I dare you guys to tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, Quintana started playoff games for them, so I would love that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not a bad thing, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of people think of Jose Quintana as trash or he's terrible, but it's like his starts have always been competitive. It's not flashy, and at times he's going to get tagged. But then again, it's like most of his starts, 80% of them are going to be competitive. So I'll take that.
For what it's worth, Glavine and Maddux were awful their last year. They both retired in 2008.
Maddux especially, yeah.
But low on Kershaw. Let's go positive now. Andy Pages is going to be, I already talked about it earlier, I think he's going to be their team's primary center fielder, and he's going to be serviceable out there. I think as the season moves along, he's going to improve and not be a liability out there defensively. At first, it might be some growing pains, maybe have some errors or misread some balls, but I think Andy Pages is gonna be serviceable out there. I think Teoscar Hernandez is gonna lead the outfield in home runs. He could actually finish second on the team in home runs. I don't think anyone's passing Shohei Ohtani, and Michael Conforto will be another. We talked about it as well. lot of pop out there in the outfield. So offensively, I think this outfield is pretty set, and I don't think the Dodgers are going to need to address any trades. Maybe they need a fourth outfielder or something. But in terms of the starters, I think they're set.
My hot take is that Conforto will hit 30 home runs and drive in close to 100 runs. I think that he has that ability in him, and I think that the Dodgers have instilled that ability, not the ability, but they've instilled that believability in him.
Yeah.
To where he's going to rake, and I don't know. I just have this gut feeling about him that he's going to as Chris says, he's going to remind you who he is. And he's going to somehow regain the glory days of when he was with the Mets and hitting all those home runs.
If he does that, is he a must resign?
I think so. I mean, yeah. Maybe. I mean, if it doesn't completely break the bank, but I mean, you're talking about a guy that would have to have something close to a Teoscar Hernandez type of season to warrant that. But I don't know. But I think he's going to have a monster season. And I will just say, Kevin, that at age 40, Greg Maddux pitched for the Dodgers and had a 3.30 ERA. Just saying.
Not horrible. Yeah. Let me touch on Pages just real quick. I don't mind that take. Here's the one thing about Andy Pages. Was it an amazing rookie season? No, but it wasn't horrible either. And what he showed was a quiet toughness of, I'm not afraid of the moment. You stick me in left, you stick me in right, you stick me in center. I'm going to make it work. And he actually got some meaningful starts in the playoffs, and he had some stare downs to some of the pitchers. And the one thing I like is you can't teach that. And that's something that a guy like James Outman does not have. I also think he's got a good beat on center field. I don't think he's a natural center fielder, but I also don't think the learning curve is going to be as steep as maybe you guys think it is. So I think Andy is going to be.
I don't know, Chris. Have you seen him out there?
I don't think it's horrible, though. I think it could be molded. Guys, still young.
Why hasn't it been molded already? That's always been my take with him. Why hasn't it been molded already?
Okay. Then how? Why isn't James Outman molded? Why isn't any of these guys molded?
Because hitting is far more difficult than fielding.
Okay, that may be the case. I'm just saying, though, Andy, I don't think is as horrible in center as everyone thought. I just don't think it's his natural position.
Well, it isn't. So, it isn't. I don't think it is his natural position. His
but if you're going to
positions are the corners.
If you're going to stick him out there, he is going to make the occasional highlight play. And if you are able to continue to work with him, just like, by the way, everyone's like, oh, man, Max Muncy stinks at third base. Max Muncy, I can make the argument, is an average to slightly above average defensive third baseman. He proved that last year.
Yeah, because he put in a shit ton of work in the offseason.
Right.
And it paid off.
And Max did that in the back nine of his career. Pages, we don't even know what he is yet, but we know what he potentially could be. And as long as these guys continue to put in the work and they care, guess what will happen? Good things. Not great things, good things. So, yes, I'm going to stick with Kevin on that. I think for now, he's your best. If you're not going to put Tommy Edman out there, or you're not going to put Outman out there, he's your best bet at center field. But
I agree.
I agree with you, too. It is something to be watched.
Grab the popcorn. This is the hottest of the hot takes. This is super bold. It's funny you mentioned his name because he's last on my list. Max Muncy. Am I going good or bad?
I think you're going bad.
Definitely.
You're both right. This is the year Max Muncy completely plummets. The bottom falls out. He's going to be borderline unplayable. I think the Dodgers have to start shopping for a third baseman around the trade deadline. The talks with Nolan Arenado might heat up again. What I'm looking with Max Muncy right now, and it kind of really started to stand out last season, he's having a hard time catching up to high velocity. The one reason he was able to thrive against the New York Mets is they had a lot of tossing lefties and soft tossing righties. But in that Yankees series, he couldn't hit a lick. In that Padres series, he couldn't hit a lick. This spring training, in 20 at-bats, he's got 11 strikeouts. He does have 8 walks, which is a positive, but 11 strikeouts in 20 at-bats, that's not good. You look at his career arc as well, he's breaking down. He missed a lot of time last season with that oblique injury or a lat strain. It was a very long injury. And that's not the only injury he had. That UCL tear, which wasn't his fault, but obviously that hindered him for a year plus in
2021.
Yes, in 2021, he was an all-star. That was his last good season. Had an 895 OPS. In 2022, he hit 196 with a 713 OPS. In 2023, he actually was pretty damn good. He had 36 home runs, but he did hit 212 with an 808 OPS. And then last season, 232, 852 OPS, but it was only 73 games. At his age, just the way things are going, I'm not high on Max Muncy. Clearly, I could be wrong because Max Muncy's proven he's an all-star player when he's at his highest peak, but I'm not optimistic about him going into 2025. And I have a feeling with him not really being able to hit lefties as well, you're going to see more Kike or Rojas at third base against left-handed pitching, and they'll platoon him. And if Muncy struggles against high velocity, which is pretty common in this game now, we're going to be talking about that is the area that the Dodgers look to strengthen up come trade deadline.
I mean, you're not wrong in all that you laid out. I mean, clearly it's not trending in the right direction, kind of like Chris Taylor, where it's like the writing is on the wall. It's just like, you can't really live with this anymore. But I honestly think that if you're looking at like Max Muncy and Chris Taylor, which are two guys that you never would have expected to be good at any point, they found these diamonds in the rough and they were able to produce. I think Max Muncy still has something left in there. And for me, it's not really based on any sabermetrics or, fan graphs or any kind of metric that you can come up with. This is pure, just like feel for Max Muncy. And I've always been a big fan of his. And if he plummets, he plummets. But I'd like to see that first. And I'm not going to count him out just yet. I'd like to see if that actually does happen. And if we're at the midway point in the season and he's not producing and it's not worth it to keep him at third base because he's not particularly a great fielder, then yeah, I mean, I think you got to have that conversation because you do need someone at the hot corner that can at least handle the position defensively and give you something offensively. And if he's doing neither of those things, well, obviously you gotta look at a replacement. But to me, it's like I'm willing. This is sort of like the Dave Roberts take. It's like I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, like just like Dave does with all of his vets and all the guys that he loves. Like I've been a Max Muncy stan for all eternity since he's been with the Dodgers. So I'm gonna let it happen and see. But I'm not gonna make a prediction that he will just plummet, like you say.
Yeah, and I think there is such a thing as having a low batting average but good production numbers, and I think as long as those don't drop off completely, where instead of talking about 30 home runs, we're talking about low 20s, maybe even high teens, then I think you have a serious problem on your hands. Last year, I think it was just derailed by that oblique injury for 3 months, and he just never got going. Unfortunately, in the postseason, yeah, he struggled a lot, especially in the World Series and the divisional round. This very well could be his final year with the Dodgers as a starting third baseman. I think that's a spot, especially with Freeman over at first and Ohtani sucking up the DH spot, and a lot of guys capable of playing the outfield. That flexibility and versatility. So yeah, I think they're all watching it. But Max also brings the intangibles, the leadership, he's really established himself as a vocal, not just a leader, but a vocal leader over the last couple of years. You heard how he was talking in some of these celebrations and on these podcasts and stuff. I'm like, this is a guy who is really, when he speaks, people listen. And so I think there is an avenue that he provides beyond just what we see on the field. That being said, come July, if you're not producing and that there's a hole in that lineup and in the field, then yeah, I think Friedman will at least entertain offers to try to address that position. So it's definitely something to watch. I'll agree with you guys on that.
All right. That's all I got. Chris, if you have to bounce anytime, let us know. Let's shift quickly to division winners, and then we'll do our awards picks after that real quick. So, Jake, I'll start with you. Give me who you think is going to win the NL West, the NL East, and the NL Central, and then you can throw on your 3 wild card teams if you have them as well. And we'll go to Chris on that.
All right, so we're starting with the National League.
Yes.
Okay, so NL West, Dodgers, obviously. NL Central, I'm going with the Cubs. It's a little open-ended right now, but I just think that the offseason that the Cubs had, building on what they had last year, I just like what they did, and I think that they have the best, major league ready roster compared to all the rest. I do think that the Reds are going to make some noise though, because they're young and they're really talented and really athletic. So I like the Reds, but I'm going with the Cubs in the Central. NL East, I'm going Braves. I'm just banking on everyone coming back and being healthy, and that roster is stacked as it is. They get Acuna coming back. They have a bounce back from Albies if he ever comes back. Riley, Olsen, that whole core. I just really like them a lot, so I think they're going to win the East. And then my wild card teams, this is where I kind of struggled because you could go any way with this. I think the D-backs are going to make it. And then I think the Mets are going to make it. And then my kind of where I'm wavering right now is, like I was saying, I like the Reds, but I'm also like, well, what about the Phillies? And the Phillies have a great team in place, but a lot of those guys are in their early 30s to mid 30s right now. So is that going to hurt this team? I don't know. So I'm kind of on the fence there.
All right.
Yeah, National. I'll keep this quick. I think Cubs are going to win that division. I think the Reds are going to be a wild card team. NL East, Braves if they're healthy. And I think the wild card teams, Arizona. I can't sleep on San Diego, no matter how much everybody wants to. I can't sleep on them yet. And I would say Phillies on that. I don't think the Mets make the playoffs this year. I don't know why. I don't trust a lot of guys on that team. And I think it could have been a bit of a fluke last year. And while Juan Soto helps, I just think there's too many other holes on that team. So those are my picks.
Fair.
NL West, Dodgers, NL Central, Cubs, NL East, Phillies. I think the biggest threat, and we're going to be talking about them a lot, will be the wild card contending Arizona Diamondbacks. I think they're going to be the biggest threat and probably who the Dodgers have to face in the NLDS. I don't think any other teams are making the Central. Just don't think they have the power. And then the Mets, followed by the Braves, will be kind of like last year. So not.
Why do you like the Phillies?
They have a deep starting rotation. Wheeler, Nola, Christopher Sanchez. They added Luzardo, Ranger Suarez, and the lineup is just good with Schwarber, Harper, Turner. They should win 90+ games as healthy. I just don't see a fall off from them.
Just watch the pen with them, because they lost some key arms in there, and I wonder if some of those guys who were never great in their careers can duplicate that. That's my only thing with the Phillies. I know I got them picked too, Kev, but that's the one concern that I have. But yes, power, lineup, and a really good rotation. That's something to keep.
And no Craig Kimbrell, so that should help too. I gotta give a quick shout out to listener Nakanishi _54941. He says, congratulations on your upcoming 7th season of being a Dodgers podcast. Any traditions or celebrations you or your squad do to ring in the new year? I don't have any traditions. As for his question, what is the percentage you would give the Dodgers of having the best regular season record? If you had to put in a percentage of what do you think the Dodgers odds are of finishing with the best record in the National League, what would you put it at?
I mean, I'd
45%.
45. That seems low.
Yeah, it is because of last year. So let's stop playing this game. Oh, they're going to win 120 games. Who cares? Win the division, go into the playoffs healthy. Move on.
I mean, they could win 100 games and still be the have those wins. I think it's more at like 70 to 80% for me.
Yeah, for me, it's like 85 to 90%. I actually think the Phillies are the closest team that would sniff us. And even then, I still think the Dodgers go up 5+ on them for the
Wait a minute. Best record or like record setting?
Best record in the National League.
Oh, yeah. 70 to 80%. I'm sorry. I misheard the question. My bad.
Yeah.
No worries. Okay. American League. I'll start first. So, why am I blinking? Okay. So we've got the AL East. I'm going Baltimore. AL Central. I'm going Cleveland Guardians. And AL West, Texas Rangers. My wild card teams will have the Astros, the Royals, and the Boston Red Sox. And just to throw in a hot take, the New York Yankees finish in last place. I think the Yankees are going to be terrible this year.
Yeah, I have them. I have the Yankees missing the playoffs too. My way mine stack up is I went same with you, AL West. I went Rangers. I feel like that division's kind of wide open, and the Rangers did the
And
most.
add on the Rangers, they're my pick to win the pennant.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what they did this offseason. Obviously, it depends on, DeGrom and Seager staying healthy and what, if Adolis Garcia is going to have some sort of bounce back. But I liked what they did overall. Jake Berger, I like all those moves. AL Central, I'm going Detroit. I like what they did last season. They kind of scrapped together. It looked like their season was going nowhere, and then all of a sudden they caught fire and they were able to get to the playoffs without Jack Flaherty. Now they have him. They got him back. And I just like the way that their team is shaped up. And I think that Central division is so wide open. I think the Guardians got worse. I think the Twins are injury prone. The Royals could make some noise, and the White Sox aren't doing anything. So I'm going with the Tigers there. AL East is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I went with the Red Sox. I think that what they did this offseason with Bregman and a bunch of other moves I can't think of, I think a Walker Buehler they signed. I think, yes, all those guys, I like them, and I think they got a chip on their shoulder. With the Yankees getting injured and all of that, I think they're going to retake this division and win it. Now, my wild card teams are the Orioles. And I think if the Red Sox don't win the East, it's going to be the Orioles. I just like their team makeup. And then I never count out the Guardians because however bad I think that they look, they always figure out a way to get to the playoffs. So I'm not counting them out. So I'm going with the Guardians as the one of the wild card teams. And then another team I never count out, even though they're significantly worse, is the Astros. And I'm picking them.
Yeah, no, when you start breaking it down, it's pretty competitive. I agree. Boston, I think, is going to take the AL East. And by the way, we talk about the top three in the Dodgers lineup. Their top five is nothing to sneeze at. And as much as people want to hate on Bregman, that is a positive addition to that team. They decided to get experience as well as accomplishments to add to their young rotation with Houck, as well as with Brian Bayo. They've got a great manager in Alex Cora. I hate the fact that I'm talking up the Boston Red Sox, but as you guys know, I'm a fair broker most of the time. In the Central, I'm going to go with Detroit as well. I think they're going to be a really solid team. I like the Flaherty pickup again to go along. Who was their Cy Young Award winner?
Skubal.
Yeah, Skubal was really good for them last year. I think he takes a little bit of a step back, but he'll be good. And then, I think Texas should be considered. I don't know about the pennant, Kev. I like the take, but they're certainly going to take that division. And then I think you got to go Royals, Astros, and while this, I want to go hot take here. Watch out for a bounce back year from the Toronto Blue Jays. They added some power. They still got a good pitching staff. It's just something to watch out for. And if they don't make it, Cleveland. But those are my teams. Baltimore, they were very disappointing. I really thought that they were going to really supplement the young talent with some good veteran talent. And of course they didn't do that because, everyone's a miserly owner and is just thinking about their own profits, except for the Dodgers.
Yeah. Interesting. No O's to make the playoffs. Yeah. So Dodgers, Rangers, that's my World Series battle of the 2023 champion versus the 2024 champion, Bruce Bochy, Dave Roberts. We get to see them battle it out. Who is the better manager? Who has the better team? So quickly,
Bochy's got 4 rings.
He does. All right. So awards real quick. AL, I'm going to do AL MVP, Bobby Witt Jr., hence why the Royals make the playoffs. AL Cy Young, Jacob deGrom, hence why the Texas Rangers win their division. NL MVP, I talked about Shohei Ohtani, and National League Cy Young, Corbin Burns.
Wow.
This is always a hard one to do this at this stage of the year. But go ahead, Jake.
AL MVP, I'm going similarly with you. I'm going Bobby Witt Jr. I just think that he is just one of the best players in baseball, and if not for Shohei Ohtani, probably having that conversation right now. For NL MVP, yeah, Shohei Ohtani. Give me Shohei back to back. I for his fourth MVP would be so sick to get 2 in the AL, 2 in the NL, and who knows what else, however many else he's going to get as a member of the Dodgers. NL Cy Young. You went with Corbin Burns. Fuck it, Yamamoto. Give it to me.
Oh, God.
I've made this
You literally
prediction
said
before.
you wouldn't do this.
Why?
You said every time you pick a Dodger, their career ends.
No, it won't happen. I picked Yamamoto before, and he had a fine season last year. So,
Almost
well,
died last
I
season.
didn't pick him to win the Cy Young, but I picked him to finish in the top voting or whatever. I mean, shit, you picked Bobby Miller. So what are you talking about?
I did not pick him to win the Cy Young.
Yeah, but you picked him to do better than what he did. I mean, come on, let's be real.
I think we both picked Spencer Strider, and he blew his elbow out.
Oh yeah, that was hysterical. That was awful.
Gosh,
I can't believe I did that. And what else do we have? The AL Cy Young. I think it's going to be one of the guys on Seattle. Whether it's like Gilbert or what's the other guy on there?
Bryce Miller.
Yeah, one of those guys. One of those guys from Seattle is going to win. Doesn't matter. They're missing the playoffs anyway.
Brian Wu.
Yeah, Woo. Those are my picks.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this simple. NL, I think you got to go with Ohtani. AL, I'm not going to go with Witt on that one. I'm going to go with somebody like, I think Vlad Guerrero Jr. If the Jays somehow get into the playoffs, I think that and he breaks out looking for that new contract, just something to keep an eye on. That's going to
I can see that.
Yeah, and that, just like Kev says, I got to go with Bobby because of my Royals take. I'm gonna go with Vlad because of my Jays take. A Cy Young for NL. Yeah, I think Yamamoto is going to be in that conversation for sure. Yeah, maybe Corbin Burns. Who knows? Maybe even Zach Allen bounces back this year. AL Cy Young. Do we go Scooble back to back? I don't know. We'll see. But DeGrom's a good pick. That's a really good one, Kev. I think I might have to agree with that one.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, I mean, shit, he's gonna win it.
Yeah, for sure. What was the other one you guys had?
I think it was just AL. I think it was just Cy Young and MVP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. I guess, manager of the year, maybe just keep an eye on Alex Cora this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is your last chance. Any rants, bold predictions, takes, any baseball, whatever you want to throw out there. This is
All
it.
right, here we go. I honestly understand everything, right? I understand why they are bringing this series to Japan. I understand why they want to start it at the time that they want to start it at. They want a primetime game in Tokyo. They want the most amount of fans to be able to get there. It's a weekday. I get all of that. I still don't have to like it. Like, I still don't want to freaking wake up at 2:30 or 2:45 in the morning to watch a baseball game, especially my defending champion Dodgers. Like, I want to have some sort of comfort where I can sit back, relax, not worry about getting to bed early, waking up. I mean, I think I might actually just have PTSD from my reporting days when I had to be at work at 3 a.m. and I just worked the morning shift all the time, and I fucking hated it. Like, I feel like that's where this is coming from if I'm really doing some soul searching here. But I honestly hate the fact that we're starting the Major League Baseball season at 3 a.m. I mean, can we at least push it a little bit? We watched an exhibition game over the weekend between the Dodgers and the Hanshin Tigers that started at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which I looked it up was like a 12 o'clock game in Tokyo. How many times do we start a Major League Baseball season in the States as a day game? I mean, it pretty much is always a day game, and it's pretty much always during the middle of the week or at the beginning of the week. I mean, it varies, right, depending on the calendar. Why can't we just do that again? I mean, I think, I still think that they're going to pack the house in Tokyo. There's not going to be an empty seat no matter what time you do it at, because that country loves baseball and they love Shohei Ohtani. So they're going to come out regardless. I just don't understand why we're putting, the majority of the fans that love it here in the States why we're putting them in this position to wake up at 3 a.m. I understand it, but I hate it.
I agree, and I'll do you one better. 2 games that count while everyone else is still getting their reps in during the spring.
Yeah.
So now you've got to get into games that count and really change your mentality quick while everyone else is chilling in Arizona and or Florida. So I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. But at the same point in time, to play devil's advocate, the Japanese are like, you have 160 other games to watch at your convenience. We're asking for 2 in March. Is that too much? You know, just like in couples retreat. What does your wife want? She wants you to take her to a waterfall. Oh, no, but you can't do that because you had some overstimulated snorkeling experience. That is you right now, Jake. You're Vince Vaughn in couples retreat. However, that being said, I'm also Vince Vaughn in couples retreat. I don't like it either. But yeah, no, I hear you. And I guess the last point, I want to get into a deeper take, but I'm going to save that for my show. The Outlet Forum Wednesday night after the Lakers Nuggets game. Just a shameless plug alert. But I really appreciate you guys having it on, and I'm excited for the season.
The time thing sucks. It is what it is. If the Dodgers ever go to Hawaii or Europe, maybe I'll be there. I don't want to go out to Asia though. It's too far for the Dodgers. I'd go for a trip, but not for baseball. My final thoughts aren't Dodgers related, but this happened the other night. They need to figure out how to get to-go cups with ice cream better. Like where I'm getting here is I went to a gelato place. They asked me if I was eating it for here to go. In my mind, when I said to go, I didn't mean you had to put it in a cup or you didn't have to put a lid on it and bag it up and all that. I just wanted to grab it and go. They smush it down, and all of a sudden it goes from like, you know, that swirly to they smush it. I don't know if that's happened to you guys, but it's really displeasing and just drives me nuts. They got to do a better job of figuring that shit out. But thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Year 7 of the Incline Dodgers podcast. There's been 2 World Series championships under our delightful podcast rants. So let's make it 3. Kevin Klein, Chris Camello, Jake Reiner, all signing out. We got a full season ahead. We're going to go to sleep now because the Dodgers play at 3 a.m. Let's have a fun season, everyone. Go Dodgers. Thank you guys for listening to the Incline Dodgers. Hit that like